Seeing the performers leaving us live in front of our eyes is an incident that leaves an everlasting impression on us. There have been many artists, musicians, and performers who died while they were performing or acting in front of their audiences or live camera. Toomey Cooper. On April 15, 1984, while performing live on television, Cooper began his act in front of a packed audience and millions watching on TV. Suddenly, he clutched his chest and fell backward. Because of his reputation for mixing comedy with deliberate mistakes, the audience thought his collapse was part of the routine. They laughed and applauded, assuming Cooper was playing his usual role as the bumbling magician. However, behind the scenes, it quickly became clear that Cooper was in grave trouble. The show's host, Jimmy Tarbuck, and other performers scrambled to attend to him, yet the cameras remained on the stage for a few more moments, unaware of the severity of the situation. Cooper had suffered a massive heart attack on stage, and while the audience waited for the next part of the show, medics rushed to revive him behind the curtain. Tragically, he was pronounced dead shortly after being taken to a nearby hospital. Mitsuharu Misawa. On June 13, 2009, Mitsuharu Misawa, a celebrated Japanese professional wrestler, tragically lost his life during a live wrestling match in Hiroshima. Misawa was renowned for his intense, high-flying style and technical skill, qualities that made him a legend in Japanese wrestling. In the ring that night, Misawa was taking part in a tag team match when he was lifted for a suplex. In an instant, the atmosphere changed. Misawa collapsed in the ring, unresponsive. The move had resulted in a severe spinal cord injury, and it was clear to everyone in attendance that this was more than just an act. The live broadcast turned somber as officials, medical staff, and wrestlers rushed to his aid, performing CPR in the ring. Spectators, both in the arena and those watching on television, held their breath as medical personnel continued to administer emergency care. Despite immediate intervention, Misawa was quickly transported to a nearby hospital, where he was tragically pronounced dead. Steve Irwin. On September 4, 2006, Steve Irwin, the crocodile hunter, tragically passed away while filming Ocean's Deadliest, a documentary exploring the world's most dangerous marine animals. While snorkeling in the waters of the Great Barrier Reef, Irwin encountered an 8-foot stingray. As he swam closely behind the animal, which typically avoids human contact, the stingray suddenly whipped its tail upward in defense, striking Irwin with a powerful barb directly into his chest. The stingray's barb pierced Irwin's heart, causing a fatal injury. Although his crew immediately pulled him from the water and attempted CPR, their efforts were sadly unsuccessful. The incident was captured on film as cameras were rolling for the documentary, though the footage was never publicly released out of respect for his family and legacy. Irwin's sudden passing at the age of 44 shocked fans around the world, who knew him for his larger-than-life personality and unwavering commitment to wildlife conservation. Karl Wallenda. On March 22, 1978, Karl Wallenda, the legendary high-wire artist, met a tragic end while performing one of his most daring stunts: a tightrope walk between the towers of the Condado Plaza Hotel in San Juan, Puerto Rico. At 73 years old, Wallenda was still pushing the limits of his art, embodying the thrill and danger that had defined his career. Known for his incredible balance, skill, and fearless approach to high-wire acts, Wallenda had captivated audiences for decades with his breathtaking stunts. On that fateful day, strong winds buffeted the wire as Wallenda carefully made his way across. Suddenly, he lost his balance and tragically fell to his death, a moment captured on camera. Though not broadcast live, the footage later circulated, bringing a somber reality to his legendary status. Wallenda's passing marked a heartbreaking moment in the world of circus arts, as he had become a symbol of extraordinary bravery and dedication to his craft. His death underscored the immense risks he undertook in every performance, and ended the career of a man who had lived his life on the edge. Pedro Henrique. On March 12, 2023, Pedro Henrique, a celebrated Brazilian guitarist known for his electrifying stage presence and exceptional skill, tragically passed away during a live performance at a music festival in São Paulo. Henrique, only 39 years old, was in the midst of an energetic set when he suddenly collapsed on stage, stunning the audience. Known for his work with prominent bands and a successful solo career, Henrique had built a reputation as one of Brazil's finest guitarists, captivating fans with his passionate, soulful playing. Emergency personnel rushed him to a nearby hospital, but he was sadly pronounced dead upon arrival. The cause was later determined to be a heart attack, a devastating shock to fans, friends, and fellow musicians who knew him for his dynamic performances and love for music. Valencia Prime. Valencia Prime, a 25-year-old transgender woman and prominent Philadelphia drag performer, tragically passed away on September 12, 2022, after collapsing on stage during a performance at Taboo Lounge and Sports Bar. Known as Philadelphia's plus-size dancing diva, Prime was hosting her live showcase, Primetime, when she suddenly became unresponsive. Despite immediate medical attention, she was pronounced dead at Jefferson Hospital. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office later determined the cause of death to be atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, classifying it as natural causes. Prime's untimely passing sent shockwaves through the local LGBTQ+ community and beyond. Tributes poured in from friends, fellow performers, and fans who remembered her as a vibrant and positive force in the performance community. Taboo Lounge expressed their sorrow, stating, "Today we mourn the loss of a very bright and rising star. We say goodbye to Valencia Prime, but we will not forget the light you brought to the stage." Colonel Bruce Hampton. On May 1, 2017, Colonel Bruce Hampton, a revered musician and pioneer in the jam band scene, passed away during a live performance in Atlanta. The concert, a star-studded 70th birthday celebration, featured Hampton performing with notable musicians from his extensive career, including members of his bands the Hampton Grease Band and Aquarium Rescue Unit. During a high-energy jam session, Hampton collapsed on stage, seemingly resting his arm on a speaker. At first, both the audience and his fellow musicians thought it was part of his theatrical style, known for blending humor and unpredictable antics into his performances. However, as the moments passed, concern grew as it became apparent that Hampton was in serious distress. Medical personnel quickly arrived and rushed him to the hospital, where he was sadly pronounced dead later that evening. Hampton's passing marked a profound loss for the music world, especially within the jam band and improvisational music community. Barbara Weldens. Barbara Weldens, a talented French singer-songwriter, tragically passed away on July 19, 2017, during a live performance at the Léo Ferré Festival in Gourdon, France. Known for her captivating voice and artistic expression, she had recently released her debut album and was gaining recognition in the music world. During her performance, Weldens, who often performed barefoot, accidentally stepped on faulty electrical equipment. This resulted in a fatal electric shock, causing her to collapse on stage. Despite immediate efforts to save her, Weldens was pronounced dead at the scene, leaving fans and the music community in shock. She was only 35 years old, and her untimely death cut short a promising career. Juan Jamelon. On November 5, 2023, Filipino radio broadcaster Juan Johnny Walker Jumalon was tragically killed during a live broadcast. Juan Jumalon, a beloved personality known for his lighthearted broadcasts on 94.7 Gold Mega Calamba FM, was not involved in controversial reporting. His program focused on spreading good vibes and jokes. The attack occurred early in the morning at Jumalon's home in Calamba, Misamis Occidental. Two men arrived under the pretense of making an announcement about lost belongings. One assailant held a staff member at gunpoint, while the other entered the radio booth and shot Jumalon twice. The gunman then stole a necklace and fled with a third accomplice on a motorcycle. The entire incident was caught on a Facebook live stream and CCTV. Sib Hashian. Sib Hashian, renowned as the drummer for the iconic rock band Boston, tragically passed away on March 22, 2017, while performing on a cruise ship. Hashian, born on August 17, 1949, was 67 years old at the time of his death. He had been a key member of Boston, contributing to the band's signature sound with his powerful drumming on albums like their self-titled debut and Don't Look Back. On the day of his death, Hashian was performing aboard a Legends of Rock cruise, a themed cruise featuring classic rock acts. During the performance, Hasian suddenly collapsed on stage. The cruise ship was sailing off the coast of the United States, and despite immediate medical attention and attempts to revive him, he was pronounced dead. Reports indicated that Hasian had been battling kidney cancer in the months leading up to his death. This diagnosis, coupled with his passing while performing, was a significant blow to fans in the rock community. The incident occurred during a live performance on the cruise, but it remains unclear if the performance was being broadcast or recorded for public consumption at the time. Dick Shawn. Dick Shawn, a well-known comedian and actor, died unexpectedly while performing on stage. On April 17, 1987, Shawn was performing a comedy routine at the University of California, San Diego, when he suddenly collapsed. At first, the audience thought it was part of the act, but it soon became clear that something was seriously wrong. Shawn suffered a heart attack and was pronounced dead shortly after being rushed to the hospital. He was 63 years old. Shawn was famous for his roles in films like It's a Mad, 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 Mad World and The Producers, and his sudden death during a live performance was a shock to many. Lillian Hardin Armstrong. Lillian Hardin Armstrong was an American jazz pianist, composer, arranger, singer, and bandleader. She was born on February 3, 1898, in Memphis, Tennessee, and was the second wife of Louis Armstrong. Known for her performances with jazz bands and her collaborations with notable musicians such as Earl Hines, Armstrong had a significant impact on the jazz scene. After Louis Armstrong's death on July 6, 1971, Armstrong traveled to New York for his funeral and rode in the family car. Following the funeral, she returned to Chicago with plans to continue working on her autobiography. However, on August 27, 1971, while performing at a televised memorial concert for Armstrong, she collapsed at the piano and died from a heart attack on the way to the hospital. She was 73 years old. KK. Indian singer KK, whose full name was Krishnakumar Kunath, passed away on May 31, 2022. KK was a celebrated playback singer in the Indian film industry, known for his versatile voice and memorable contributions to Bollywood music. Born on August 23, 1968, in Delhi, KK began his career as a singer in the 1990s and quickly gained recognition for his soulful and emotive voice. He recorded songs in various Indian languages, including Hindi, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada, and Bengali. Some of his most popular tracks include Tadup Tadup from Hum Dil De Chukai Sanam, Pyar Ke Paal from Hate Story, and Kya Kehna from Kya Kehna. KK's death occurred during a live performance in Kolkata. He was performing at a concert at the Nazrul Mancha Auditorium when he suddenly collapsed. Despite being rushed to a nearby hospital, he was pronounced dead on arrival. The cause of his death was reported as a cardiac arrest. KK was 54 years old at the time of his passing. His untimely death shocked the Indian music industry and his fans, leaving a significant void in the world of playback singing. Zoltan. Hungarian music star Zoltan dies during Swedish live TV show. He was performing for a video recording when he had a sudden heart attack and collapsed in front of camera. Many German and Hungarian newspapers then questioned his natural death and considered it a planned murder. Kosta Tich. South African rapper and dancer Kosta Tich, whose real name was Konstantinos Sobanoglu, tragically died on March 11, 2023, during his performance at the Ultra South Africa Music Festival in Johannesburg. While on stage, he collapsed twice, with the second collapse proving fatal. Despite quick medical attention, Kosta Tich was pronounced dead shortly after the incident. The exact cause of his death remains unconfirmed, with speculations about a possible seizure. Papa Wemba. The legendary Congolese musician known for pioneering soukous music, Papa Wemba died on April 24, 2016, during a performance at the Femua Music Festival in Abidjan, Ivory Coast. He collapsed on stage, and despite immediate efforts to revive him, he was pronounced dead shortly after. Papa Wemba's music career spanned decades and influenced generations, blending traditional African rhythms with modern sounds. Goodbye to Gravity. Goodbye to Gravity, a Romanian metal band, faced a tragic disaster on October 30, 2015, during their album release concert at Collective Nightclub in Bucharest. A pyrotechnics display ignited the club's soundproofing foam, causing a devastating fire. The blaze spread rapidly, leading to a stampede as attendees tried to escape. Sadly, 64 people lost their lives, including 4 band members: Vlad Telea, Mihai Alexandru, Bogdan Enache, and Alex Pascu. The incident led to national mourning and sparked significant protests over corruption and lax safety regulations in Romania. Irma Boulevard. The popular Indonesian dangdut singer, known for her daring performances with cobras in her neck, was tragically died on April 4, 2016. During a live performance in Karawang, West Java, Irma was bitten by a king cobra snake that she used as a prop on stage. Despite initially refusing treatment, believing the venom had no effect, she later collapsed and was rushed to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. Tiny Tim. Another person who died while performing was the American singer famous for his unique falsetto voice and ukulele performances. His name was Tiny Tim. He gained fame with his hit Tiptoe Through the Tulips in the 1960s. On November 30, 1996, while performing at a gala benefit in Minneapolis, Tiny Tim suffered a heart attack on stage. He was rushed to the hospital but was pronounced dead shortly after. Christina Grimmie. She was a talented singer and former contestant on The Voice, that tragically died on June 10, 2016. After a concert in Orlando, Florida, she was signing autographs for fans when a gunman approached and shot her. Despite immediate medical attention, Christina succumbed to her injuries. The assailant, who was tackled by her brother, then took his own life. Christina Grimmie was just 22 years old. Dimebag Darrell. Legendary guitarist for Pantera and Damageplan, was tragically killed on December 8, 2004. During a Damageplan concert in Columbus, Ohio, a gunman rushed the stage and shot Darrell multiple times, killing him instantly. 3 others were also killed before the shooter was taken down by a police officer. Darrell, known for his influential guitar work and energetic performances, was 38 years old. Owen Hart. On May 23, 1999, during a WWE pay-per-view event called Over the Edge, saw a tragic incident. Owen was performing a stunt where he was supposed to descend into the ring from the rafters using a harness and grapple line. However, something went wrong during the stunt, causing Hart to fall approximately 78 feet and land in the ring. Despite immediate medical attention, Owen Hart succumbed to his injuries. WWE never released the official video of his falling. On October 11, 1991, Red Fox, the beloved comedian famous for his role in the television series Sanford and Son, collapsed on the set of the television show The Royal Family while rehearsing a scene. Fox was rushed to the hospital but was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. His death was attributed to a heart attack, which he suffered at the age of 68. Dawn Bruncho. She was an experienced trainer at SeaWorld Orlando. During a routine interaction with an orca named Tilikum, the whale unexpectedly grabbed her and dragged her underwater. Despite efforts to rescue her, Bruncho succumbed to her injuries. The incident shocked the world and sparked debates about animal captivity and trainer safety. She tragically passed away on February 24, 2010. Silver King, on May 11, 2019, while performing in a wrestling match at the Roundhouse venue in Camden, London, Silver King, a Mexican wrestler and actor, tragically passed away. He collapsed in the ring during a bout and was pronounced dead shortly afterward. Nick Menza. On May 21, 2016, Nick Menza, the former drummer of the band Megadeth, tragically collapsed on stage while performing with his band OHM at a club in Los Angeles. Efforts to revive him were unsuccessful, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Juan Carlos Formel. On 26 May 2023, during a performance in the Bronx, Formel suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 59. He was a Cuban musician and composer. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee, the legendary martial artist and actor, died unexpectedly on July 20, 1973, at the age of 32. Known for his groundbreaking films like Enter the Dragon and his philosophy on martial arts, Lee's death shocked the world. He was in Hong Kong working on a film when he collapsed. The official cause of death was cerebral edema, a swelling of the brain, possibly caused by a reaction to a painkiller he had taken earlier. Brandon Lee. Just like his father, Brandon Lee also died in a tragic accident on March 31st, 1993, during the filming of the movie The Crow. During a scene where Lee's character is shot, a prop gun that was supposed to fire blanks instead discharged a real bullet fragment. The gun had been improperly prepared. A bullet with no powder had lodged in the barrel during a previous scene. When the blank was fired, it propelled the lodged bullet fragment, hitting Lee. Lee was struck in the abdomen and collapsed. He was rushed to the hospital where surgeons tried to save him, but after several hours of surgery, he was pronounced dead. The official cause of death was a gunshot wound. Let's drop the nostalgia goggles. For all the glitz and glamour, Golden Age Hollywood was obsessed with one thing: controlling women's bodies and stories. But what happens when a star's appetite, real or rumored, threaten that power? Tonight, we dig into the notorious nymphomaniac whispers that studios tried to erase. Which screen legends were hounded by rumors that almost eclipsed their talent? And why did these stories refuse to stay buried? Let's open the case files. Clara Bow. Clara Bow was the original It Girl, a wild child of the jazz age whose very presence seemed to electrify every frame. Off-screen, Bow's refusal to play by Hollywood's rules triggered a tidal wave of rumors. She danced on tabletops, swam naked at parties, and shrugged off scandal like yesterday's news. The tabloids, hungry for any sign of weakness, painted her as the ultimate nymphomaniac, claiming she had dozens, even hundreds of lovers, including studio executives, athletes, and actresses alike. Paramount's PR machine worked overtime, sometimes spinning Clara's free spirit as quirky charm, other times scrambling to bury stories that threatened box office gold. Yet behind the headlines was a woman shaped by trauma, a rough Brooklyn childhood, an abusive mother, and a desperate need to be loved. The industry devoured her, using rumors of insatiable desire as both sword and shield, proof of her magnetism, but also justification for shaming and sidelining her. When mental health struggles surfaced, the press pounced, turning her exhaustion into evidence of moral decay. In truth, Clara was a casualty of Hollywood's obsession with controlling women's sexuality, punished for living as loudly as the men around her. Her real scandal? Daring to claim the same freedoms Tinseltown pretended to celebrate? Tallulah Bankhead. Tallulah Bankhead was a one-woman hurricane, smoking, swearing, drinking, and by her own admission, loving with abandon. Unlike so many of her peers, Bankhead didn't try to outrun the rumors. She grabbed them and set them on fire. Stories of her supposed nymphomania were legendary, including jaw-dropping boasts of having more lovers than hot dinners. Journalists tripped over themselves to outdo one another with tales of Tallulah's conquests. Men, women, even the odd politician or royal. But here's the trick. Bankhead used the hysteria as a spotlight, making herself unmissable and unmanageable. Studios alternately exploited her notoriety for ticket sales and wrung their hands about her bad influence on America's youth. She reveled in the contradiction, once quipping, "My father warned me about men and booze, but he never mentioned a word about women and cocaine." Yet the gossip was always a double-edged sword. Her image fueled her legend, but also shut doors, especially as the production code and public morality cracked down in the late 1930s. Still, Bankhead refused to apologize. She knew that in Hollywood the only sin greater than desire was honesty. Her real act of rebellion, turning rumor into power and scandal into survival. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, the original blonde bombshell, was Hollywood's golden ticket to box office gold in the early 1930s. On screen, she radiated a playful, brazen sexuality that was decades ahead of its time. Off-screen, the myth of Harlow as an uncontrollable seductress grew ever wilder. Studio fixers whispered about trysts with co-stars, secret affairs with married men, and a sex drive so fierce it scared the pants off Hollywood's biggest names. MGM's publicity department worked around the clock to keep the rumors at bay, fearing for both her reputation and their profits. But for every denied headline, another would surface, painting Harlow as a cautionary tale of excess. The truth was far more complicated. Jean struggled with domineering husbands, studio exploitation, and profound loneliness. Her rapid-fire rise to stardom left her isolated, and the rumors, often started by jealous rivals or frustrated executives, became a kind of prison. When Harlow died tragically young at just 26, Hollywood didn't mourn the woman, but canonized the myth. Today, those old stories of nymphomania look less like scandal and more like a desperate bid to control a woman whose power both thrilled and threatened an industry built on illusion. Mae West. Mae West was the original master of sex appeal on her own terms. Her wit was as sharp as her curves were famous. Her double entendre could outfox any censor. Yet with every provocative joke and sultry performance, West attracted the wrong kind of attention. Rumors that she was addicted to pleasure, that she propositioned her co-stars, and that her private life was even wilder than her scripts. The nymphomaniac label clung to her, fueled by the outrage of church groups and the glee of gossip columnists. Studios loved the ticket sales but loathed the headaches, especially when the Hays Code came down hard on any hint of indecency. But West had a secret weapon: self-control. She mocked the rumors, flipping the narrative with every comeback. "I used to be Snow White, but I drifted." As the industry tried to muzzle her, she only grew more outrageous, transforming scandal into lasting celebrity. By the time Hollywood realized it couldn't tame her, West had become a cultural icon. Her legacy? She proved that a woman's power didn't have to come from permission, but from owning every story they tried to use against her. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton's life reads like a Hollywood morality play with a tragic twist. A stunning starlet with charisma to spare, she seemed destined for the A-list until scandal and rumor dragged her down. Payton's whirlwind romances, most infamously her love triangle with actors Tom Neal and Franchot Tone, made juicy tabloid fodder. Whispers of nymphomania followed her everywhere. Affairs with producers, backlot trysts, and insatiable cravings that supposedly wrecked her career. But the truth was far grimmer. Behind the headlines were abusive relationships, substance abuse, and a system eager to exploit her pain. Studios distanced themselves, with publicists painting Payton as a cautionary tale. The more her personal life unraveled, the more the press feasted, gleefully chronicling her every misstep. Unlike male stars for whom a wild reputation could spell longevity, for Barbara it meant total exile. She ended her days penniless, a ghost of the ingenue she'd once been. In the end, Payton was destroyed less by her own appetites and more by an industry that craved her destruction. Her tragedy was a warning. In Hollywood, a woman's sexuality was currency until the day it was used against her. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy Lamarr's beauty was so blinding, it was easy for Hollywood to forget the mind behind the face. After her breakout in the scandalous European film Ecstasy, Lamarr was dogged by stories of forbidden pleasures and an uncontrollable desire. Studio bosses cast her as the exotic temptress, and columnists speculated endlessly about her private life, affairs with actors, tycoons, and even European royalty. The label of nymphomaniac became shorthand for untamable woman, a way to explain her independence and keep her in check. Yet while the world obsessed over her bedroom, Lamarr was quietly revolutionizing technology, co-inventing frequency-hopping signals that laid the groundwork for Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Still, she was rarely taken seriously. The myth always overshadowed the achievement. Lamarr herself later admitted, "Any girl can be glamorous. All you have to do is stand still and look stupid." The tragedy is that, while Hollywood relished the rumors, it missed the true story. Hedy Lamarr was a woman who broke every mold, on screen, in the lab, and in life. The nymphomaniac myth was Hollywood's way of keeping genius in a gilded cage. Joan Crawford. Few stars embodied both power and vulnerability like Joan Crawford. Her climb from poverty to Oscar winner was legendary, but so were the whispers that haunted her ascent. Crawford's ambition, coupled with her beauty, attracted relentless scrutiny. The rumor mill spun tales of countless lovers, studio bosses, directors, actors, and, whispered even more quietly, other women. Nymphomaniac became the go-to slur for anyone trying to explain away her relentless drive or cut her down to size. MGM and Warner Brothers both worked to craft her public persona, strong, maternal, and just a little dangerous. But when career setbacks hit, the old rumors came roaring back, with columnists questioning her fitness as both actress and mother. Crawford, however, fought back, controlling interviews, fiercely managing her image, and outlasting nearly all her rivals. Yet the rumors never fully died. They resurfaced in tell-alls, tabloid exposés, and even in her daughter's infamous memoir. Today it's clear, Crawford's true sin was refusing to stay in her place. Hollywood called it nymphomania. History calls it ambition with teeth. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner was the living, breathing embodiment of old Hollywood glamour, fierce, flawed, and undeniably magnetic. The press branded her a love goddess and then hounded her for it, inventing and inflating tales of endless affairs and nights of wild abandon. Her relationships, especially her tempestuous marriage to Frank Sinatra, became tabloid obsession, and the nymphomaniac rumors multiplied with each new headline. Studios saw her allure as both asset and liability. They cashed in on her sex appeal while secretly fretting over her reputation. But Gardner refused to play victim. She once famously declared, "I either write the script or I get written out." The harder Hollywood tried to box her in, the more she pushed back, living her life on her own terms, even if it meant scandal and exile. Later in life, Ava dismissed the stories with a laugh, pointing out the double standard that made male stars into romantics and women into cautionary tales. In the end, the legend of Ava Gardner's desire said less about her and more about a town obsessed with policing pleasure. Louise Brooks. Louise Brooks was the original rebel of silent cinema, a woman whose independence was legendary, whose sharp wit matched her dark bob. From the start, Brooks refused to play Hollywood's game. She turned down roles, mocked studio bosses, and partied with abandon. Naturally, the industry struck back with rumors, stories of affairs with actors and actresses, sex parties, and a reputation as a self-destructive nymphomaniac. Brooks' openness about her desires, especially in an era of suffocating censorship, made her a target for moral crusaders and industry power brokers alike. When she walked away from Hollywood, her legend only grew, morphing from icon to cautionary tale. For years, gossip overshadowed her artistry. Only decades later did critics rediscover her films and recognize her as a pioneer. Brooks herself wrote, "Hollywood was a place where they pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul." The real scandal was never Brooks's appetite. It was Hollywood's need to punish women who wouldn't be tamed. Veronica Lake. With her peekaboo hair and icy allure, Veronica Lake became a symbol of 1940s cool, a look copied by millions. But success bred scrutiny, and as her career stumbled, the knives came out. Lake was dogged by rumors of sexual escapades, impulsive affairs, and insatiable urges that supposedly made her impossible to manage. Studio bosses, who once courted her every move, began blaming her personal life for every professional setback. Gossip columnists feasted on her divorces, financial woes, and emotional struggles, painting her as another Hollywood tragedy brought down by her own appetites. But the real story was more complicated. Lake battled undiagnosed mental health issues, alcoholism, and a cutthroat industry quick to discard difficult women. By her 40s, she was broke, living in obscurity, a cautionary tale for every star who dared to live off script. In truth, Lake's scandal was never about too much desire, but about a town that loved its legends, damaged and done. Hollywood's favorite game? Building legends and then breaking them, especially when desire was involved. Behind every nymphomaniac rumor, there's a story about power, shame, and the price women paid for living outside the lines. Which forgotten scandal made you question the legends? Hit subscribe and tell us in the comments. Are there stories the industry still doesn't want you to know? Because if Tinseltown taught us anything, it's that the truth always finds a way back into the spotlight. Let's drop the rose-colored glasses. Behind old Hollywood's velvet curtains, the studios didn't just manufacture stars. They churned out legends and whispered about their so-called uncontrollable appetites. But who decided which women were icons and which were nymphomaniacs? Here's a question. Was it lust, loneliness, or just plain old sexism at work? Grab your popcorn because this episode isn't about fairy tales. Ready to discover who made headlines and who paid the price for craving more than just the spotlight? Let's peel back the silk sheets and dive in. Lana Turner. If there was ever a star whose private life could outshine her public image, it was Lana Turner. Forget everything you know about Hollywood glamour. Lana's story is pure, undiluted drama. This is a woman who wasn't just chasing love. She was running straight through a minefield of desire, violence, and headlines that refused to let her breathe. Let's set the scene. Lana was barely 16 when she was discovered at a soda fountain and transformed into a starlet overnight. The studios branded her as the sweater girl, and men, both on screen and off, lined up like they were auditioning for heartbreak. But it wasn't her 7 marriages that sent gossip columns into a frenzy. It was the body in her bedroom. Enter Johnny Stompanato, the mob-connected lover with a jealous streak that bordered on deranged. Their relationship was a powder keg, passionate, possessive, and destined to explode. When Lana's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, stabbed Stompanato to death during a violent argument, Hollywood nearly burst its seams. Was it self-defense? The court said yes, but the whispers said Lana's bedroom was a battleground. Of course, the nymphomaniac label came fast and thick. Tabloids painted Turner as a sex-crazed femme fatale, always hunting for her next thrill. But the reality? Lana's real addiction was love. She was obsessed with the idea of being cherished, maybe even saved. Each affair was a shot at redemption, each marriage a chance to rewrite the script. And let's not forget, old Hollywood ate these stories up, selling more papers off Lana's sins than her Oscar-worthy performances. But here's the real twist. Through every scandal, Lana Turner owned her reputation. She never played the victim. Instead, she flipped the script, turning heartbreak, trauma, and even murder into one of Hollywood's greatest survival stories. The next time someone calls her a nymphomaniac, remember, Lana Turner was living proof that in a town obsessed with fantasy, the wildest stories were sometimes heartbreakingly real. Mini conclusion? Lana Turner didn't just make headlines. She set the standard for every messy, passionate Hollywood drama that followed. And if her appetite for love shocked the world, maybe it was the world that needed a wake-up call. Tallulah Bankhead. Let's get one thing straight. Tallulah Bankhead didn't care what anyone thought. Not the studios, not the censors, not her own parents. In an era where Hollywood kept secrets locked in vaults, Tallulah was a walking, talking scandal. Proud of it, too. She was the original I do what I want rebel, and her legend is built on the bodies of broken taboos. Tallulah came from political royalty. Her father was a Speaker of the House, but she sprinted from Southern decorum to the wild lights of Broadway and Hollywood. She drank harder than most men, smoked like a freight train, and dropped one-liners so sharp they'd slice through steel. Her off-screen antics were the stuff of legend, but it was her unapologetic sexuality that sent the gossip mongers into overdrive. Was Tallulah really a nymphomaniac, or just a woman ahead of her time? The answer depends on who you ask. She slept with men, women, and probably a few folks who still aren't sure. Tallulah herself said, "My father warned me about men and booze, but he never said a word about women and cocaine." That wasn't just a punchline, it was a manifesto. In an age when most stars hid their wild sides, Tallulah lived hers out loud, daring anyone to shame her for it. But don't mistake her bravado for recklessness. Bankhead was razor smart, a Tony winner, and a genuine artist. Her circle included everyone from Tennessee Williams to Billie Holiday. She wasn't just making headlines for scandal, she was shaping culture, proving that you could be brilliant, bold, and utterly uncontainable. Hollywood tried to rein her in, but Tallulah was a force of nature. When she hit the stage or screen, the world watched, breathless and scandalized. Was she a nymphomaniac? Only if you believe that craving life, love, and a little bit of chaos is something to be ashamed of. Tallulah's appetite was never just about sex. It was about living every moment at full tilt. Rules be damned. Here's your punchline. Tallulah Bankhead didn't just break Hollywood's rules. She rewrote them, with a lipstick grin and a wicked wink. And if that rattled the industry, well, maybe Hollywood deserved to be shaken up. Ava Gardner. Ava Gardner wasn't just a Hollywood siren. She was a one-woman hurricane who tore through the world's biggest bedrooms and left gossip columnists gasping for air. The studios called her the world's most beautiful animal, but Ava was nobody's pet. She set her own rules, and if men couldn't keep up, they got trampled under those legendary high heels. Start with the facts. Ava grew up in North Carolina, dirt poor, then rocketed to stardom thanks to a single photograph. She married Mickey Rooney at just 19, before she'd even figured out what she wanted from life. Spoiler, it wasn't Mickey. Next came Artie Shaw, then Frank Sinatra, each one a human fire alarm for tabloid writers. Her marriage to Sinatra was an explosion of love, jealousy, booze, and violence, with public fights that made front pages coast to coast. They divorced, reunited, fought, and made up in a cycle that was practically sport. But what made Ava the target of that infamous nymphomaniac label? Simple. She said what she wanted, drank what she liked, and didn't hide her affairs. She famously told reporters, "I like my whiskey old and my men young." The press couldn't get enough, and Hollywood's hypocrisy kicked into overdrive. Male stars with wandering eyes were celebrated. Ava was accused of being insatiable. Behind the headlines, though, was a woman desperate for authenticity. Gardner never shied from admitting her loneliness. She described herself as the world's loneliest woman, and her wild relationships were often attempts to fill a void that stardom only made deeper. She was reckless, raw, and unapologetically real. Just what Hollywood needed and exactly what it feared. The punchline? Ava Gardner's love life was epic, but her survival was even bigger. She outlived the era that tried to box her in, and even as she aged, she never let the world shame her into silence. They called her a nymphomaniac, but she was really a truth-teller in a land built on lies. If old Hollywood wanted a lesson in what it really meant to live, love, and take no prisoners, Ava Gardner wrote the rulebook, and she did it in lipstick, with a shot of whiskey in hand. Zsa Zsa Gabor. How do you become a Hollywood legend? For Zsa Zsa Gabor, it was simple. Collect husbands like other people collect postcards, and make sure every single affair comes with a headline and a laugh. She wasn't just famous for her movies. She was famous for being Zsa Zsa, the original tabloid queen who made her love life a public sport. Born in Hungary, Gabor survived war-torn Europe before conquering Beverly Hills with nothing but her accent, wit, and diamond-drenched charm. She married 9 times, yes, 9, and always insisted it was for love, even when her exes lined up to disagree. Zsa Zsa's philosophy was as shiny as her jewelry. I am a marvelous housekeeper. Every time I leave a man, I keep his house. The press couldn't get enough. Rumors swirled of affairs with everyone, from movie moguls to diplomats, and Zsa Zsa played it up with a twinkle in her eye. Was she truly a nymphomaniac, or just a woman who refused to settle? Hollywood's double standard was on full display. Male stars were ladies' men, but Gabor was branded insatiable. She didn't care. Each marriage was a chance to reinvent herself, and each divorce another opportunity for a killer one-liner. Even her infamous 1989 slap of a Beverly Hills cop became part of her legend. But beneath the glitz, Zsa Zsa was a survivor. She fled Nazi-occupied Europe, rebuilt her life in America, and turned heartbreak into comedy. Her marriages weren't just romantic adventures. They were business, self-defense, and showmanship rolled into one. Gabor outlasted most of her critics, living to see herself become a reality TV icon long before reality TV even existed. Here's your takeaway. Zsa Zsa Gabor's love life was tabloid gold, but her real story is one of wit, resilience, and a refusal to ever be the punchline. She made Hollywood play by her rules, and every nymphomaniac headline was just another jewel in her crown. Zsa Zsa didn't chase scandal. She owned it, packaged it, and sold it back to the world with a wink. If that's a crime, Hollywood should have handed her a Lifetime Achievement Award. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow was Hollywood's original blonde bombshell, a star whose combination of innocence and sexuality practically invented the good girl gone wild myth. She was the poster child for forbidden desires, and her life burned so hot and fast that even her scandals seemed to glow. Born Harlan Carpenter in Kansas City, she stumbled into film almost by accident, but her platinum hair and baby vamp persona made her a phenomenon. By 21, Harlow was one of MGM's biggest stars, glamorous, funny, and more than a little dangerous. Studios loved using her image to tease audiences. Her roles in Red-Headed Woman and Dinner at 8 made censors sweat and moviegoers swoon. But off-screen, Jean Harlow's life was even wilder than her movies. She was married 3 times before her tragic death at just 26. Her second husband, Paul Byrne, died mysteriously only months after their wedding, an apparent suicide. But rumors swirled of murder, bedroom games gone wrong, and a secret life nobody could quite explain. The tabloids had a field day, spinning tales of orgies, affairs with co-stars, and a sexual appetite that knew no boundaries. Did Harlow deserve the nymphomaniac label? Probably not. She was more a victim of her own vulnerability than a predatory femme fatale. Friends said she was kind, funny, and desperately seeking the love she never quite found. But Hollywood, always hungry for a scapegoat, decided that a beautiful woman with a complicated past must be addicted to sex. Harlow's public image became a cautionary tale. She was both the fantasy and the warning. Still, you can't deny Jean Harlow's impact. She made it okay for women to want, to flirt, and to laugh about their desires. If she broke the rules, it was because the rules were made to break women like her. The industry feasted on her persona, then mourned her as a tragic example when her kidneys gave out and she died in her mother's arms. In the end, Jean Harlow's greatest scandal wasn't what she did in the bedroom. It was that she refused to be ashamed of who she was. The world called her a nymphomaniac, but the real crime was demanding a price for her sparkle. Clara Bow. If you want to know who wrote the blueprint for Hollywood scandal, look no further than Clara Bow, the original It Girl. Clara's rise from Brooklyn slums to silver screen royalty is pure Hollywood myth. But what set her apart wasn't just her talent. It was the way she turned desire into rebellion, making every camera flash feel like an act of revolution. Bow wasn't just Hollywood's biggest female star of the 1920s. She was the first modern sex symbol, a woman whose natural charisma made men, and plenty of women, swoon. Her performance in It invented the term sex appeal, but off-screen, Clara's real life was 1,000 times messier than any movie. The press called her wild, reckless, even dangerous. They said she had more affairs than a phone book has numbers, and the infamous rumor about Clara and the entire USC football team? Tabloid gold, totally exaggerated, but it stuck because the world couldn't believe a woman could have that much power or that much fun. What they didn't print, Clara's childhood was a horror show marked by poverty, abuse, and trauma. Stardom didn't heal her, it just gave her new scars. The studios wanted a good girl on the screen and a bad girl off it, and Clara, blunt, honest, and deeply wounded, gave them both, but at enormous cost. She found herself hounded by private detectives, betrayed by supposed friends, and shamed by the industry that cashed her checks. Did Clara Bow deserve the nymphomaniac label? Hardly. She was a survivor, not a predator. Sex was her escape, her rebellion, and sometimes her undoing. If men had lived half as boldly, they'd have been called legends. For Clara, it was scandal. The double standard was as thick as the smoke in a prohibition nightclub. Clara Bow's wildest act wasn't anything she did in a bedroom. It was daring to live by her own rules. She blazed a path for every difficult woman who came after, even as the system tried to erase her. When her fame faded, Bow disappeared from Hollywood, preferring obscurity to more headlines. In the end, the It Girl gave Hollywood its first real taste of sex appeal and showed just how dangerous a woman could be when she owned it. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford was the definition of steel-willed ambition, a woman who turned herself from a humble Texas dancer into one of Hollywood's most enduring legends. But behind the carefully crafted image was a life stalked by rumor, scandal, and that infamous nymphomaniac tag that clung to her like cigarette smoke. Let's get this out of the way. Joan Crawford didn't play by anyone's rules. She was married 4 times, tangled with more lovers than her publicists could count, and never apologized for wanting it all: career, love, and power. To her critics, that made her difficult. To the tabloids, it made her an insatiable sex machine. Gossip columns drooled over her rumored flings with everyone from Clark Gable to Marilyn Monroe. Was it all true? Probably not. But for Crawford, image was everything, and so was survival. Why did Joan attract such a scandal? Maybe because she didn't care about society's double standards. She chased roles, lovers, and opportunities with the same hunger, refusing to let Hollywood typecast her as either saint or sinner. If she wanted something or someone, she went for it. The studios loved selling her as the ultimate other woman, playing up her sultry screen roles as proof of off-screen passions. But for every steamy headline, there was a story of heartbreak, failed marriages, betrayals, and a battle to stay relevant in an industry that didn't want ambitious women to age. Crawford's private life was complicated. She was fiercely protective of her adopted children, despite what Mommy Dearest later claimed, and struggled with loneliness and addiction behind the scenes. Her desire wasn't just for sex, but for validation, a craving as deep as her drive for stardom. Hollywood built her up, then tore her down for being the very thing it demanded: bold, hungry, and unashamed. Mini conclusion? Joan Crawford didn't just embody the era's sexual anxieties, she weaponized them. If Hollywood was a battlefield, Joan fought with everything she had, turning every rumor into a badge of survival. The next time someone calls her a nymphomaniac, remember, the real sin in Tinseltown was wanting too much, and Joan never stopped wanting. Elizabeth Taylor. When it comes to Hollywood love lives, nobody did it bigger, louder, or more unapologetically than Elizabeth Taylor. If the tabloids were oxygen, Liz would have never needed to breathe. 8 marriages to 7 men? Check. Scandals, affairs, and front-page breakups? Double check. The phrase living out loud could have been invented for her, and so could the nymphomaniac label, thrown at her by a world desperate to contain her legend. Born in England, raised in California, Taylor was a star before she hit puberty. But it was her grown-up years that set records, and not just at the box office. She married her first husband, Nicky Hilton, at 18, and the carousel spun from there. Michael Wilding, Mike Todd, Eddie Fisher, stolen from Debbie Reynolds, Scandal. Richard Burton, Twice, John Warner, and Larry Fortensky. Taylor didn't just collect husbands. She created epic love stories, each more dramatic than the last. The love of her life, Richard Burton, her co-star in Cleopatra, and the man who matched her passion, pint for pint, fight for fight. Their relationship was so explosive that Vatican City publicly condemned it as erotic vagrancy. The press labeled Liz a nymphomaniac, an addict to love, jewels, and excess. Her response? I am a very committed wife, and I should be committed too, for being married so many times. But what fueled Taylor's wild heart? She chased love the way she chased stardom. All in, no regrets, and with zero patience for hypocrisy. Hollywood called her scandalous, but what she really was honest about her cravings, her heartbreaks, and her search for connection. For every torrid affair, there was real pain. She lost husbands to tragedy, faced addiction, and survived more public heartbreak than most stars endure in a lifetime. And through it all, she used her notoriety for good, raising millions for AIDS research and using her platform to break taboos. The world gawked at her love life, but Elizabeth Taylor used every headline as fuel. The nymphomaniac label was just another glittering jewel in her crown, a word meant to shame her, but which only made her shine brighter. In Hollywood, love is a commodity. For Liz, it was a crusade. The joke's on anyone who thought they could shame her for wanting too much. She wanted it all, and for a while she had it. Rita Hayworth. If ever there was a woman both worshipped and wounded by the title Love Goddess, it was Rita Hayworth. Her on-screen persona was pure fire, glamorous, untouchable, and dripping with sensuality. But for Hayworth, Being Hollywood's ultimate fantasy came with a cruel twist. No matter how many men she married, how many hearts she broke, or how many smoky glances she tossed, she couldn't find the love she was supposedly addicted to. Born Margarita Cancino to a family of dancers, Rita's early life was a cycle of discipline and heartbreak. Groomed for stardom from childhood, she entered the spotlight with one purpose: to be desired. Hollywood transformed her, changed her name, electrolysed her hairline, and taught her how to smolder for the camera. But the real secret: Rita was painfully shy. On set, she'd light up a room. Off set, she shrank into the shadows, plagued by anxiety and self-doubt. So why did the world brand her a nymphomaniac? 5 marriages: Orson Welles, Prince Ali Khan, Dick Haymes, James Hill, Edward Judson, and a parade of high-profile lovers made for irresistible copy. The press painted Hayworth as a woman driven by insatiable urges, a love addict who could never be satisfied. But the reality was far sadder. Rita was searching for comfort and stability in a world that saw her only as an object. She famously lamented, "Men go to bed with Gilda, but wake up with me." Rita's loneliness was legendary. She battled alcoholism, survived public humiliation, and watched as her sex symbol image overshadowed her genuine talent. Hollywood gave her everything, then devoured her. She lived out her final years in seclusion, a far cry from the spotlights that once adored her. And yet, even as her life faded, her legend only grew. The label nymphomaniac was just another lie the industry told to excuse its own failures and double standards. Rita Hayworth remains an icon, not because she was insatiable, but because she kept searching for love in a place that only offered lust. In the end, she was a goddess built by men's fantasies, but undone by her own humanity. Mae West. Long before the censors showed up, Mae West was teaching Hollywood and America how to wink, smirk, and laugh at its own prudery. She was the original architect of sexual innuendo, and she built her entire career on the foundation of naughtiness and empowerment. If nymphomaniac was meant as an insult, Mae wore it as a crown. Born in Brooklyn in 1893, Mae West was nobody's ingenue. She wrote her own plays, produced her own movies, and thumbed her nose at every authority figure who tried to box her in. Her Broadway hit Sex landed her in jail for corrupting the morals of youth, and she turned the arrest into free publicity. By the time she got to Hollywood in the 1930s, the studios didn't know what hit them. Her movies, She Done Him Wrong, I'm No Angel, were scandalous, hilarious, and packed theaters. But what set Mae apart wasn't just the risque dialogue. It was her total, shameless embrace of female desire. She bantered, she flirted, she dominated the room. Her catchphrases, "When I'm good, I'm very good, but when I'm bad, I'm better," became cultural currency. Men loved her, women wanted to be her, and censors, well, they hated her. Did Hollywood call her a nymphomaniac? Of course. She was too confident, too independent, too funny for the comfort of the gatekeepers. But Mae turned scandal into an art form. She loved men, lots of them, but she always made sure she was the one in control. When the Hays Code cracked down on immorality, Mae just got cleverer, sneaking her jokes past the censors and into the mouths of an adoring public. Mae West wasn't just ahead of her time, she was the time. She made America laugh at its own hang-ups, and she did it with a twinkle in her eye and a double entendre always at the ready. For every critic who called her a sex fiend, there were 1,000 fans who saw her for what she really was, a pioneer who proved women could be smart, sexual, and successful all at once. In the end, Mae West redefined what it meant to be shameless, and in doing so, she liberated generations of women who dared to want more. So what's the real story behind Hollywood's nymphomaniacs? Maybe it's this. In a world built on secrets, the greatest scandal was refusing to be ashamed. These women didn't just chase love, they chased freedom, broke taboos, and turned gossip into legend. Which story shocked you most? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more untold Hollywood truths, and remember, sometimes the real drama is in what the headlines tried to hide. See you next time, under the silver screen's darkest lights.